would like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting of July 29th to order. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Bernay, Councillor and Chair of the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee. I would like to begin by reading a safety notice. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate council chambers to the nearest exit through the chamber doors and obey all instructions given, and if assistance is required, please see our Deputy Clerk. Once you have evacuated the building, please gather in the front parking lot outside of Town Hall. Also, please ensure your cell phone is on silent or turned off. And lastly, the Town of Lincoln Committee of the Whole meetings are posted on our YouTube channel. Closed captioning is available on all our videos by selecting the closed captioning button on the bottom right of the video. Roll call. Members of committee are in attendance in person and remotely, with regrets this evening from Mayor Easton, Councillor Reimer, and Councillor Rinjema. We have staff in attendance in person and remote. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none. Do members have any amendments to the order of the agenda? Seeing none, we have no statutory meetings this evening, and jumping right into consent agenda, we are now considering the consent agenda inclusive of the Heritage Advisory Committee minutes of May 9th, 2024, and the Municipal Law Enforcement Q1 and Q2 report, PD-33-24. Would any members of committee like to remove any item from the consent agenda to discuss? Councillor Michalak.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. Would it be possible to lift the municipal law enforcement report? I just have a clarifying question too.
Absolutely, Councillor. Duly noted, Deputy. And that will happen during the finance meetings later on in the meeting, right?
You got it. We'll put it towards the end under the planning and economic development. No problem.
Thanks very much, and thank you, Councillor Michalak. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers that all items listed under the heading of a consent agenda this evening, which will now be the Heritage Advisory Committee minutes of May 9th, be brought forward. And I will now ask our Deputy Clerk to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. I have opened that vote. And I'll close that vote, and that motion carries. Thank you, Chair.
So we are now at the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee agenda, and we will now begin the CSI agenda. We have no delegations this evening, and now reports under 7.2. We will consider report PW-04-24, the 2024 Town of Lincoln Water, Sanitary, and Stormwater Annual Reports, and the Director of Public Works and the Manager of Operations will be providing a presentation. Prior to the presentation, I will ask that committee proceed with a majority vote to request an extension for the presentation until completion. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Timbers that committee extend the presentation time regarding report PW-04-24, the 2024 Town of Lincoln Water, Sanitary, and Stormwater Annual Reports until completed. Deputy Clerk?
Thank you. I'm okay with a show of hands, Chair. And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of committee this evening for giving us an opportunity to provide an update on the town's water distribution system and storm and wastewater system annual reports. There we go. So we're going to highlight what we want to go through is we're going to talk about the water distribution system first. We're going to talk about our distribution systems. We want to go over legislative compliance, our water loss data update, monitoring and improvements, our quality management system, and we also want to talk about the CLI ECA for stormwater and wastewater systems. And then we're going to have questions at the end. So I'm going to turn it over to Frank, who's going to start us off.
Good evening, everyone. So we're just going to go through a few slides there that we prepared. So just to give a quick overview of our Beamsville water distribution system, we get our water from the Grimsby Water Treatment Plant. It services approximately 16,000 residential homes and businesses within Beamsville. We have approximately 65 kilometers of water main. Within there's 456 fire hydrants, which are flushed annually. We have one bulk water filling station, which is located here at Town Hall. Our Vineland Jordan system, we receive our water from the Q treatment plant in St. Catharines. Again, we service approximately 7,500 residents and businesses in Jordan, Vineland. There's 42 kilometers of water main pipe in this distribution system, 255 fire hydrants again, which are flushed annually. 2 booster pumping stations, one on Glen Road and the other on King Street at Victoria, both of which are in this year's capital program for service. The picture on the right is the one on King Street. Our next slide is our legislative compliance component. Every year, the MECP does an audit of our entire water system. Last year, 2023, received 100% risk rating for both systems, so there was no non-compliance in both systems, which is fantastic news. Again, every year they do another internal audit, which is on our water compliance officer to ensure he's following proper procedures. We had one opportunity for improvement, but it was just more or less like a clerical concern, so it was not a real big concern. Our next slide has to deal with our water loss for 2023. This is all unaccounted for water within our system. And last year, I'm pleased to announce that we had an 8.2% average. Most municipalities like to be between 10 and 15%, so we're well below the average. And again, this is completely attributed to council support and investment in the replacement of metallic pipe and our new water meter replacement program in the town. So thank you. Another component of our water system is our customer service water portal. It's an online portal for residents and businesses to view their water usage. It also alerts residents and businesses of continuous usage that can be a result of water leaks. Also, through investments from council and grant funding, we have 12 smart hydrants placed throughout Lincoln. These proactively notify us of pressure drops, which could be early detection of water main breaks. The next 2 slides deal with infrastructure rehab and repairs. In 2023, we only had 6 main breaks in Lincoln. 2 were age-related, 4 had to deal with contractor errors. 1 was on Bartlett, and the other one was on Main Street, both in May of last year. Again, our remaining metallic pipe in our systems. We have, again, 0 cast iron left in our system, 3.18 ductile iron and 4.9 of line cast iron. And we anticipate over the next 10 years to have that number down to 0. Just some water matrix that the staff on hand are busy completing every day. Just a note too, samples collected. So last year we collected 2,022 samples. And then complaints that we only had 6, 5 to deal with taste and odor, and 1 was one pressure issue. I'm gonna hand the presentation back over to Director Gray.
So this is a re-endorsement of the Town of Lincoln Water Distribution Systems Operational Plan. This is included as Appendix 1 in the report. And the operational plan is really one of the key components of the drinking water system licensing program as required by the Ministry of Environment. And this operational plan, it's really the framework for the DWQMS, or Drinking Water Quality Management Standard. There's 21 elements that are required to be addressed throughout this plan. And what we're asking for tonight is for council's re-endorsement of this plan. It's all part of our reaccreditation process that we're going through right now to renew our accreditation, which is up in January of next year. So we want to do this in preparation of that. So DWQMS, it's our continual improvement initiative. We're always updating this, reviewing it, and it really supports on the right-hand side of the screen there, it really supports the Town of Lincoln's drinking water quality management system, our policy statement, and that is to provide a consistent supply of clean and safe drinking water to our customers. We want to comply with all of the applicable legislation and regulations, and maintaining and continually improving quality management systems. So again, very important to what we do. So this section of the presentation, the CLI ECA overview. So this is a new requirement from the Ministry of Environment, and it's issued under the Environmental Protection Act. And it applies to sanitary, sewage, or wastewater conveyance systems, and stormwater management, which could be made up of storm sewers, stormwater management ponds, etc. And it includes pre-authorization conditions similar to what's already in place for the municipal drinking water system. So these new ministry requirements, really the goal is it's reducing the burden on municipalities, developers, and the ministry while imposing a consistent set of conditions to improve environmental protection. So the CLI ECA, it replaces the numerous pipe-by-pipe separate environmental compliance approvals that was the practice prior to this new requirement coming out. So what would happen is anytime the municipality extended a sanitary sewer or storm sewer, maybe we upsized, made the pipes bigger, new infrastructure coming as part of our developments, all those separate works would require a separate approval process. So now this has all been consolidated into one framework, if you will. And it's basically looking at a single environmental permission for all sewage works and for wastewater and stormwater management systems. So like the DWQMS framework for water, we're now going to be looking at doing similar for our wastewater systems and our stormwater management systems. Also, these new requirements, they require the municipality to prepare an operations and maintenance manual for the wastewater and stormwater systems. And as part of that, there's going to be, key inspections, testing, record keeping, and we're going to have to submit annual reports to the ministry. We're going to receive annual inspections from the Ministry of Environment, and we'll also be receiving audits as well. So again, it's kind of going in the same direction as what we already have in place for our water systems. So under the operations and maintenance requirements of this new requirement from the ministry, just to highlight what the town has been doing. So we've completed a comprehensive asset management study on the town's 14 stormwater management ponds, which involved detailed condition assessments and also looking at any rehabilitation and maintenance needs for those stormwater management ponds. And coming out of that work, we're also looking at a prioritized work plan to implement any repairs and maintenance on our stormwater management ponds. And we're looking at starting this as early as next year in 2025 And then we're mapping our capital forecast to include works in our ponds based on a priority basis. So council can expect to see proposed priority stormwater management pond repair work as part of the 2025 budget coming up. So stay tuned, you'll see more on that. We're also upgrading signage for our stormwater management ponds. This is another requirement of the CLI ECAs coming out from the Ministry of Environment. And what we're aiming to do with the signage is, number one, identify to the public that it is a stormwater management pond. We're going to provide our CLI ECA registration number on there, and also contact information for the town in case a member of the public would like any more information on the specific stormwater management pond. And I believe we're gearing up to have those signs in place as we go into the fall. Also, looking at what we're doing to work with the operations and maintenance manual, we want to launch a proactive fog campaign to educate residents. So fog is basically your fats, oils, and grease. So we really want to start educating the public and informing the public on the impacts of pouring fats, oils, grease, down the drain. Really, the objective is if we can help reduce potential sewer backups, both for the residents' private plumbing, their own plumbing, and then the public side being the lateral from the house and our main pipes in our road systems. Because as the grease and fats cool, it solidifies and can restrict and eventually clog our pipes, resulting in sewer backups, etc. So again, we want to look at preventing any costly repairs in the future by getting this message out. It's also an advantage to, from an environmental perspective, to reduce the amount of drain cleansing chemicals that people may have to pour down the drain to help free up any clogs with grease buildup. And then ultimately, too, at our wastewater treatment plant, a lot of percentages of high fats and oils in the wastewater can cause problems at the wastewater treatment plant as well. So on the right-hand side of the slide here, kind of give committee members a bit of a idea on what the campaign's going to entail. So what we're looking at is providing a paper cup to residents, kind of be like a coffee cup, and we're going to have a bunch of messaging on there, how to use it, why it's a good thing to dispose of fats and oils and grease in this manner. So really providing paper cups, people can pour in their grease and fats in there, let it harden, and then you can actually dispose of it in your green bin. So kind of an environmental friendly approach in terms of even the disposal of it. And really our messaging is going to be, it costs more to rinse fats, oils, and grease down the drain than it does to just let it cool and put it in the green bin. So we're hoping to launch this in probably mid to later Q3 of this year. So stay tuned, there'll be more coming on that. And some next steps with the CLI ECA requirements. So we're going to continue to develop and formalize our standard operating procedures for water, for wastewater and stormwater, similar to what we've developed for the water system. So we're going to continue to work on those. We're going to continue with the town's I&I reduction programs, which align with the goals of the new regulation in terms of being more proactive with our wastewater systems and ultimately protecting the environment as a result. We'll continue to collaborate with agency partners on testing requirements being developed. All that has not been developed yet, but it's in the process of being developed in terms of what type of testing requirements municipalities will be looking at in terms of our stormwater systems and our wastewater as well. We're going to continue to monitor and learn just more about this new requirement, and staff participate in different working groups with other municipalities. to really look at, best practices being developed. And then we're always participating in different ministry webinars. The ministry's been pretty proactive in terms of, educating municipalities on what this new regulation and requirements will entail. And with that, we're both here to try and answer any questions committee may have. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Director Graham and Frank. Thanks very much for the presentation. Do members of committee have any questions? Councilor Murray?
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you to our presenters. I wanted to look for just a moment at slide number 5, when you talk about your legislative compliance. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking 100% risk rating, no non-compliance, and no recommended improvement must be a very good response. So well done. That's very exciting to see that. I wanted to get a little bit of context around that. And what is the average that other municipalities are doing? Is 100 the expected level, or are people sitting a little lower than that, or what do we normally see?
Through Mr. Chair to the councillor. So, I think most municipalities get a good rating. You definitely want a good rating. We're really proud that we have 100%. There's probably other municipalities that have 100%. I don't know the actual statistics, but I would say you definitely want to be up in the higher percentages with this type of inspection. It is a compliance type inspection, so that would be the expectation, is you want to do really well on it.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Councilor Michalak?
Thank you very much, Chair Brunei, through you to Dave and Mr. Buffalino. I just want to say thank you for the work that you guys do 24 hours a day, like you and your team, to ensure that the water is up and running. I think it's critically important. I think having 2 water main breaks during the course of a year is pretty exceptional. I'm not sure if most municipalities fall into that category. Question I have with all this new regulation, however, that the province ministry is placing upon us, this all comes with a cost. That's what I'm sensing. Do we, or should we as council or representatives, be advocating to the municipality or to the province to help us with these additional costs that are being pushed or asked of us to impose?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor. It doesn't hurt, I suppose, to always, advocate for any additional support when there's new requirements coming out. The ministry has been fairly flexible with municipalities. I think they appreciate, a lot of these are new requirements that are being looked at and will be implemented along the way here. So they are, working with municipalities. They're not just sort of saying, here's all these requirements and, it's tight timeline or unreasonable. So there is seems to be a good spirit in terms of working along the way to get to where everyone needs to be with this, but I guess those would be my comments.
Okay, thank you. Just, I think there absolutely needs to be regulation with water, especially when there's a health risk that's associated with possible bad actors and their management of water. However, it just to drop more regulation on folks that are already doing a good job. I'm just concerned about the additional costs that might be associated with that. Thank you.
I'm not seeing any other additional questions, either here or, Councilor Pachariva. Councilor Pachariva, please proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Brunei. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask a question to Dave and Frank. You know what? Excellent report, guys, as always. And one of the things I'm I'm proud of is the water loss history and how it's below the 10% benchmark, that was established in 1999 by the California Urban Water Conservation Study. And it says improvements can be made. What improvements can be made to drop that even further?
Through Mr. Chair to the counselor, and great question. I think we're always looking at where we can tighten up our system. So that would be trying to find more leaks in our system. We're trying to better account for our water usage as it relates to operations, so our flushing programs. So because we use a lot of water for our flushing programs to turn over fresh water, and so we're looking at better capturing those estimates to try and ensure we have very accurate numbers on the water we're using, working with our fire departments. So I think there's lots of opportunities to try and be more accurate with our current estimating for our water loss, but those would be some examples that we're continuing to look at.
Okay, terrific. Question number 2, Chair Brunei, through you. So with respect to the Jordan Vineland system, I found it odd that the highest average monthly consumption was September. Is that because it coincided with the new sod being laid in Jordan Village, so people were watering? Because typically you would think it would be June, July, August, the growing season.
Through Mr. Chair to the counselor, I think with Jordan Vineland, there's a lot of greenhouse operations that are on municipal water. So I think what we're seeing is a lot of times it's kind of a reflection of their growing seasons. I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I know it's sort of late summer-ish. We see those peaks. I think July and August are fairly similar, but it's in around those areas.
Okay, well, that makes sense. So it's not Councillor Mikulik washing his truck every day. Okay, and third question through you, Chair Brunei. With respect, and I highlighted it, was it the flushing, to rechlorinate the water, like the dead ends, you had them laid out and they tended to be at the ends of the lines. So that I get. But I found the one on George Street curious because that's right in the middle, of South Beamsville. So just curious to why it's necessary there, or is there a dead end water main there?
Through Mr. Chair to the counselor, I believe George Street, I think we have a sampling station.
Oh, it's a sampling station.
Maybe that's what we're
Okay.
referring to, counselor. So we do have a number of sampling stations throughout the town. It's basically a tap, if you will, where we can take water samples from. So I know we have one on George Street. I think that's what that may be referring to.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the presentation, guys. I echo the rest of the councilors' comments. These things don't happen by accident, and there's a huge legislative component and compliance, and then there's the audit side of things. So, I know there's a number of people out in the field, working every day, but there's also, people inside working on the audit. I think Vanna Yu needs to be recognized for all the hard work that he does behind the scenes. So I just wanted to acknowledge, his performance. With regards to the 14 stormwater ponds and, the testing, the record keeping, the inspections that we're going to need, and then there's going to be the clean out, and then of course there's going to be probably the need to remove that material, which is probably going to have to be taken off a site. I know you would indicate that we will be getting some numbers as we go into budget, and we want to start this in 2025, but any idea where we're going to be starting with some of these ponds? Like, I understand we've got some issues up at Ashby Pond. Any comments there in relationship to, the most severe ponds? Is that where we're going to be starting, or are we going to be starting with, from a compliance standpoint?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. So the first pond that we do want to do maintenance on is the Ashby Pond off Ashby Drive there. So we are proposing to include that in next year's budget as our highest priority pond to do some maintenance work to the outlet system and some cleaning works. And then what we're trying to do, kind of based on the detailed inspection we've had done, is then we're prioritizing the ponds kind of from there on into the future. So, and it's really going to be based on which ones need to be cleaned, the most in comparison to others, or other minor maintenance work. So.
That's great. Thank you very much for the presentations and the questions that councilors had for you. There being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councilor Michalak that committee receive and file report PW-04-24 regarding the 2024 Town of Lincoln Water, Wastewater, and Stormwater Annual Reports, and that committee endorse the 2024 Town of Lincoln Water Distribution Systems Operation Plan as attached in Appendix A. And I will now ask our Deputy Clerk to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote's now open. And I will close that vote, and that motion carries. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We will now consider report PW-0624, the Public Works Update Report, Q2 2024. And the Director of Public Works will provide introductory comments to this report. Director Graham, please go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair, and members of committee, I'm pleased to provide the Public Works Q2 update report. And what we're looking at here is it's for information purposes for committee and providing an update on all the town's public works related projects, programs, and key regional projects within our community. I'd also like to highlight that the document provides various departmental service statistics and metrics for the particular quarter that we're reporting on, or season, if you will. So we've included that in the document. And I know I was talking to our communications team, and they're ready to go in terms of sharing the document after tonight's meeting on social media platforms and sort of get the information out to our residents. And we also, just for committee's information, we also include hard copies of this document at our town facilities, such as libraries, Fleming Center, and things like that as well for members of the public to access. So I guess with that, if committee has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Graham. Do members of committee have any questions with regards to this this Public Works Q2 update? Councillor Timmers, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Brunei. Just a comment. I always appreciate these reports, and they're so well done, and it's an excellent piece of information for the public. Everything is there, and there's so much going on. It's a great resource, and when residents have questions, it's right here at our fingertips. So it's very, very useful, and I just want to thank staff very much for the work that's went into this, and very appreciated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Timmers. I'm not seeing any other questions at this point. I would like to make a couple of comments myself. I just wanted to thank Director Graham. I know this council has made a huge commitment to the truck bypassing and getting trucks out of the downtown core. And we started off with some blitzes a number of years ago. We were having 2 a year, and I think we're up to 7 this year, and possibly stand by and more to come before the end of the year. So I think that's really important. And when you look at the statistics, every time we have one of those blitzes, the number of vehicles that we're pulling off the road and the infractions that are there just reinforce the fact that this program is working and it's definitely necessary. So I want to thank Director Graham as well as MTO and the NRPS and Halton Police and everyone involved in these blitzes for assisting us to keep our roads safe. There being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Murray that committee receive and file report PW-0624 regarding the Public Works Update Report Q2 2024. And I will now ask our Deputy Clerk to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. And I will close that vote, and that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Devan. We have no further reports for the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee agenda this evening, and therefore we have now concluded the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee agenda, and I will now ask the Deputy Clerk to transition to our next committee agenda.
Thank you, Chair Bernay. I will be moving the gavel to Councillor and Chair Lynn Timmers to assume the chair at this time for the General Business and Finance Committee agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Devan. As chair, we will begin the General Business and Finance Committee agenda. We have no registered delegations for the committee this evening, and we will now consider Report FN 1024 regarding the 2024 Q1 operating and capital financial reports. Do members of committee have any questions? Councillor Mikulik.
Thank
Go
you very
ahead.
much. Thank you very much, Chair Timmers, through you to Charlotte. So it's a quarterly report. I don't recall if we've received these sorts of quarterly reports in past years. I think it's good to do so. A question I have with regards to, with respect to the building department, the budgeted revenue was to be $976,000. So far, we've collected $85,000. We're wrapping up basically the second quarter, the half a year. So I'm just trying to, at what point would we be concerned with these numbers and how they're tracking, especially with the times that we're living in terms of actual shovels going in the ground, building permits being taken out, and this sort of thing? Is there any concern that we should be looking out for proactively, or any measures we should be taking?
Okay, thank you. Through to Director Tiankaitis.
Thank you, Chair, through you to the councillor. I would say at this point it's quite early in the year, looking at the Q1 report, and there also tends to be cyclical activity within those departments. So I think, when you talk about having the reports regularly, that helps us to start to see the patterns over time. And in my experience, typically building activity is a bit lower at the early part of the year because construction hasn't started yet. There are always exceptions to that, but it isn't concerning to me in itself that it would be lower in Q1. That's about what I would expect. So I would say we're just monitoring. We do regularly report internally as well to the departments, and we set up meetings and look at it. And if we thought there was something, that required looking at the fees or the levels, we would look at that at a later date.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just can't see the other side of the room. Go ahead, Mr. CEO.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think just to further add, and I appreciate Councillor Mikulik asking this question. He asked it earlier, and I did have a chance to talk to our Chief Building Official, Mr. Greenaway, on a chat that Charlotte, the councillor, and I had, and just want to share some of his comments, again, for additional context. The first quarter of this year, I think as we're seeing, did have low permit numbers. They've already doubled in the second quarter, and I think as Andrew highlighted, for us, we should see higher permit activity in 2024 than we did in 2023. Some of it's the lag, some of it's just a timing thing. And although this number, I think although this year's numbers are probably lower than we saw in that very hectic peak of 2021, 2022, there is anticipation just based on what we're seeing come in. Some of the low-density development in Benchmark, which in and of itself is about $320,000 in permit fees. The Prudhoe Singles, Royal Maple, Camden Estates, all things that are currently taking place should get us through this, what I would call slower time that we're at right now until some of the larger condo projects begin next year. If you think of just a Utopia West as an example, that's $620,000 in fees. So just wanting to provide context for council. Nothing out of the ordinary. We're actually trending better this year than we were last year. And so just wanting to give you a little bit of that update. One of the other things, building revenues and expenses are not part of the tax levy. So I think Charlotte highlighted that, but wanted to highlight that as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Councillor Mikulik, I see you still have your
No,
mic on?
No, I appreciate that response. I
Are you-
appreciate the additional information. It's just, it was, for me, it was kind of a little bit confusing because the planning department revenues seem to be actually doing better than trending. And I'm not sure, this isn't my area of expertise, like what the correlation is or what the relationship is between the two departments is. I feel, or I was always believing that they were, walking together. Another question I have is with respect to Appendix B of Report FN 1024, the last page when we talk about all our capital, expenditures or, what we've approved, what's, where everything is in the hopper, let's say. And currently we have it running actuals as a percent of budget at 2%. Is there control over that? Is there anything we need to worry about? Is there a number where if that percentage gets to a certain level where we need to worry moving forward? And are these things sort of controllable?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Over to you, Director Tunakaitis.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to the councillor. I think the control over those numbers is the budget that council's approved. That's the authorization for staff to proceed with those projects, and I know that they are monitoring. I get lots of questions on a regular basis about budget, what's left, so I can say that staff are really looking at their budgets and making sure they stay within that allotment. So, the bigger concern would be if we did have a budget pressure, but we look at that at time of procurement, typically. So as long as a project is going for procurement, we're making sure that we are within our stated thresholds that have been approved by council, and then that's how we proceed. So that budget is the control mechanism, and then following our procurement policy, which council approved, also helps us to maintain that.
Okay, appreciate that.
Thank you, Director.
We do, like, these projects that are outlined have been approved. It's just that they've not been moved upon. So that's just where I need that clarification, or I need that level of comfort, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Not seeing anyone else in the queue. So this report was very well done. Thank you very much, Director. It shows a quarter of the year, and we're basically on track of where we should be. So good report. Thank you very much. It was very clear and very spelled out, very, very easily to follow. Moving on, I have a motion. The committee receive and file report FN 1024 regarding the 2024 Q1 operating and capital financial reports and approve the recommendations as presented in Appendix B of report FN 1024. Devan, if you could open the vote, please.
No problem, Chair. That vote is now open. And I'll close that vote, and that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. So we are now moving into the Planning and Economic Development Committee agenda. We have no registered delegations this evening, and under reports, we have one item that was removed from the consent agenda. The Municipal Law Enforcement Q1 and Q2 Report PD 3324 was lifted by Councillor Mikulik. Did you have a question regarding that report? Please go ahead.
Thank you. Through you to Mike Barkway, thank you for this report and the data that you've provided with us. With regards to the, trying to generate revenue, through parking, let's say. Let's take a look at parking. And, we have a certain number of tickets that are handed out, like 274 during the 2 quarters. But then we have 52 screenings, and I'm curious, like, what that amounts to. Like, do we generated something like $8,000 in revenue, but like, what are the screenings? How do we determine screenings and what that works out to as far as whether it's the net, like, is it 8,000 or 9,000 or so net, or is it after screenings or before? Like, I'm not sure. I wouldn't mind some clarification on those numbers.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Through to Mr. Barkway.
Through you, Chair. Thank you for the question, and I appreciate everybody taking a look at the report. If we're speaking about parking enforcement and the tickets issued, I will note that in the first quarter that's explained on there. Bear with me for a second. Fine totals were $6,940. And the adjusted fine total was $6,525. So there's a reduction of about 400 and change or 300 and change, sorry, in the total of the fines. And that would be in large part due to screenings that were conducted. During the screening process, the appellant has an opportunity to provide information for the screening officer, which in the town of Lincoln's case is myself, to consider for disputing the parking infraction notice. And the parking infraction notice can remain as it is with the set fine remaining as it is. It can be withdrawn, and in some cases they are withdrawn. And in other cases they can be affirmed, but then the set fine can be reduced and a period of time provided for the appellant to pay the fine. So some parking offense notices, parking infraction notices are actually withdrawn because there's an error, or they can be withdrawn because there's exigent circumstances that are explained by the appellant. And in some cases, the parking infraction notice is affirmed, but the set fine is amended, so it'll be reduced by half or a third or a quarter, depending on the totality of the circumstances. And that's it's a case by case basis.
Appreciate that. Those numbers are about right, like $415 and then $10 for the 1 quarter and $415 for the other, working out. If there's 52, and I don't want to start nitpicking at numbers, but like at 52 appeals, it works out to about $10 a ticket. I don't know if there's such a thing as $10 a ticket, so I'm not sure how that all works as far as the accounting goes. Further to parking, my guess is that it's all enforcement officers are monitoring parking. Is there a possibility, or would it make financial sense at all to have somebody focusing mainly on parking and managing parking and trying to make this more revenue positive?
Mr. Barkway, did you have any follow-up to that?
Through you, Chair. Thank you all for trying to answer that question. It would be ideal to have parking enforcement officers that work solely for the town of Lincoln for parking enforcement. At this time, we don't have that. And I will suggest that from the amount of complaints we have and the investigations that go on, the staff that I have currently, they're doing parking enforcement on top of the other bylaw investigations that they conduct. And they afford the time that they can for parking enforcement during each of their shifts. But they cannot, it is difficult to have an officer assigned strictly to parking enforcement and have complaints and investigations standing by and not being dealt with. So there is time generally on every officer shift to do some parking enforcement. But parking enforcement is also, unless you're talking about a business district, parking enforcement is random because a vehicle can be there for 5 minutes and then gone, or a vehicle can be there overnight, but when an enforcement officer goes into the area, the vehicle is gone. So it's not a straightforward thing, such as in a timed parking lot or a metered lot, where it's straightforward and can happen very consecutively.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you. For me, it's kind of frustrating when I see, vehicles parked on bicycle lanes, vehicles parked over sidewalks. I see, vehicles parked for days at a time. And it's just, I don't know, I don't want to be the one, or I don't know if people know that they should be calling in those complaints and those, those people that are not following parking rules. But at the same time, I think, myself, if you don't send a message, if you don't, if we're not harder on it, then behavior doesn't change very much. And that's just my thoughts on parking. And you're talking to somebody that's learned from it when I do get tickets, right? I get tickets. And when I get a ticket, I change my behavior. And I also pay. That's just my thoughts on that. So that's why I was looking at parking in particular. Thank you.
Okay, Mike, did you have your hand up? Were you looking to speak? No, okay, sorry, I thought, okay. I see Councillor Pachariva, you have your hand up, so please go ahead.
I do. Thank you, Chair Timmers. Mike, thank you very much for the report. And I was going to ask this the last time you did a report. And could you do, what's a typical day for municipal bylaw enforcement? So, do you get together in the morning and give them a game plan, or how does it work? Because I know I get complaints coming in from, non-compliance parking in school zones. So that's a big one. And then there's Councillor Michalek, there's the scofflaws that park, overnight, right in front of the sign that says no parking. Typically, one of the things that infuriates me is because land scrapers and contractors park right in front of a house that has a no parking sign rather than in the driveway, and they put a cone out. They think that's okay. So, what's a typical day in your guys' life, if you wouldn't mind?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Mr. Barkway?
Through you, Chair, thank you for the question. The officers attend and they will go through their own emails for any updates from complainants that they would have had further information from. They make any callbacks that they need to make. They check the inbox for any incoming complaints and our voicemail for any incoming phone call complaints and return those. Create by files for those, which are reporting systems that we have. They've been reviewing bylaws prior to attending complaints so that they can be aware of what they have to be enforcing and what authorities they have. We have meetings in regards to any major files or cases or issues that have come up in investigation. Then the officers go on the road and they conduct their investigation. And based on the complaints that come in, some of that might be automatically into parking enforcement right off the hop or at the beginning of their shift, or that may come later on during the day. And all the officers can appreciate the fact that residents that live in all the various areas throughout Lincoln will see parking concerns that they feel should be addressed. And I would suggest that my officers do a very good job of enforcing the parking bylaw that we have. But we are talking X number of streets divided by the amount of hours that the officers have in a day, and they have 3 full-time officers who have to cover off 6 days to a week. So their expectation is also to do the complaint investigations as well. So their day is spread out very well. But I do know, I can tell you that all the officers attend through the various areas of the municipality, and they do proactive enforcement, and they also do reactive enforcement for parking especially. And they create files, and then they share that amongst the other officers, so everybody's aware of issue areas. And then the other officers will attend in those areas as well, and reattendance and do follow-up.
Okay, thank you very much. And through you, Chair Timmers, question number 2. Mike, are they assigned to, and I don't mean to get in the weeds, like, do they have like specific areas? Like, does someone cover Beamsville and someone covers Vineland Jordan and then up over the mountain? Or how do you deploy them?
Through you, Chair, thank you for the question. No, they aren't assigned specific areas. Because of the shifts that the officers work and their days off, the officers cover the entire area and will go from one end to the other, from Beamsville to Jordan to Camden to Lake Ontario, wherever they need to go throughout their shift in order to do their investigation.
Okay, and third question, Chair Timmers, would it help, Mike? So it sounds as if they come into the office and have to do a bunch of office work, per se, before hitting the road. Would it help if they were given the capabilities to do that stuff remotely? Much like a police officer, right? Has you see they have the computer screens and everything mounted, and you see them, sometimes off to the side of the road doing their stuff. Do our guys have the ability to do that? Or would that help them?
Through you, Chair, thank you. Yes, they do have the capability to do reports remotely. So they are provided with work phones, so they are able to be out on the road and then pull over into a parking lot and do reports or follow-ups and make phone calls. And some things need to be done at the office because there's also checks outside of the software that's available on the laptop that they take in their vehicles with them. And some things are contacting and communicating with other agencies that are either within the town or outside of the town.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bernay.
Thank you, Chair Timmers. Through you to Mr. Barkway. So, Mike, I had a question with regards to page 6 in the report, which talks about construction noise. So, I know over the years, Councillor Patrieve and I have had received, numerous questions with regards to, contractors starting, early in the morning and working late at night. So obviously we have time restraints, and we have bylaws that these contractors need to adhere to when they're working in areas close by to homes. So I'm just trying to understand. I see the report is clearly indicating that we had something that went to court and there were fines levied on a site in Vineland. So I'm just trying to understand, through you, Chair, to Mr. Barkway, the whole leveling of, costs incurred and what we collect versus, the costs that are incurred to get us to court, to substantiate the allegations, the MLE time involved, any court costs and anything that's behind the scenes versus the actual monies that are collected. And then once we get, a court ruling, what is the time frame till we actually see that money? I'm just wondering if you could respond to that specific on the construction noise aspect.
Go ahead, Mr. Barkway.
Through you, Chair. Thank you for the question. I will try to answer some of that, and I will say that some of this, I will, if I may, I'm going to ask for some time to do some research on and try and be able to provide a more full answer for you. But I can say that in the instance that's provided, the example that's provided within the report, the fines that were levied against the construction company were $600 for the 2 offenses. And in regards to the time frame, I'm waiting to hear back from the provincial prosecutor in regards to the time frame for that, how much time we have to pay, but I'm anticipating that might have already been paid. And what I would like to do is just take some time and see how many hours were put in by the staff for the investigations, so I can maybe provide some clarity in regards to what we put out and then what we're saying back to fines. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, and through you, Chair, I appreciate that response. I asked only the question only because, obviously, we have to be respectful of the residents that are living in the areas, in these construction zones, and we get these complaints all the time as counselors. But I want to ensure that, we're not, our staff is not running around, multiple times to the site, and then there's the whole thing to substantiate it. And, if there's a lot of work involved in construction time, what is the balance here, to collect $600? So, if it's an isolated case, but I mean, if we had these occurring on a regular basis, I'm just wondering, how we balance that. So that's the reason I asked that question. I look forward to any further information you have with regards to that. I just had an additional question through you, Chair Timmers, with
Go ahead.
regards to some of the complaints with regards to noise on special events. So you specifically mentioned 3 areas of event space, wineries specifically. So it appears that we have 3 facilities that we've had to look at, but I'm just trying to understand the actual number of complaints that we're receiving. I believe the number was 19 in the report. Just wondering if you could elaborate as to, like, how many people are actually being affected by these noise. Is it one particular family, or I'm just wondering I'm just trying to understand that through you, Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Barkway.
Through you, Chair. Thank you for that question. I can say in each of the instances, the separate locations. In one location, there was 2 properties that report that they're being disturbed by the events that are taking place. I will say that for 2024, with the events that are taking place at that establishment, we've received no complaints from those properties or anybody else. From the second property, from the remaining 2 properties, it's one individual per location that is complaining about the noise. It's never been corroborated by a second or third person at any of the other event locations of that same disturbance finding.
So just a follow-up question through you, Chair. So what is our responsibility if staff continues to go out and we're taking, recordings, or, we're looking at decibel readings, whatever we're doing when we're going out there? But at what point do we close the file and say, okay, we've been out here and we're not, or do every time there's a complaint, we have a responsibility to go out and investigate it again and again and again? I'm just wondering how we deal with that.
Through you, Chair. Thank you for the question. I would suggest that in the practice that we have is that we receive the complaint on the basis of the complaint and we investigate it. We don't make an assumption beforehand. We are talking about noise, so it is somewhat subjective, but each event carries with it a different In the case of a concert, it's going to be a different setup, different amplification, different band or performer, and they can all have an effect on noise quality and the levels that may be transferring out. So my officers do attend when we receive a complaint, and we look at it on the basis of the complaint and go through that information. I will say that our standard and what we look at is very different. In one case, one of the establishments is also being investigated by the AGCO because the same complainant has reached out to the AGCO about the noise and the issues that are going on, or they're suggesting the issues that are going on at that establishment. And the AGCO's limit goes just verbally on the information of the complainant. So they don't have to really substantiate as much to the level of what we will do in order to take something to court, and they have their own tribunal process internally with the AGCO. So I do communicate with the AGCO investigator, and I will happily say that this year with one location where the AGCO is involved, they have concurred with the findings of my officers that attended that. The noise has not been where it's been intruding on any property that the attendants have had, which solidifies for me that myself and my officers are doing their job. Are investigating.
That's great. Thank you very much, Mr. Barkway. Thank you, Chair Timmers.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I see Councillor Pachariva. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Timmers, and through you. And Councilor Bernay kind of touched on it, Mike. I mean, at what point, is it an issue of the boy who cried wolf? Right, and you get there, and you know what? And reading this report on the weekend, and there was a news story about a Taylor Swift concert. It was somewhere in Europe. I think it was Germany. Might have coincided with the Olympics. I'm not sure. Maybe France, but it was an open air stadium with 80,000 people inside. And on the hillside surrounding it were 40,000 people on blankets and chairs enjoying the concert. If you get a free concert, put your chair on the front lawn, invite your neighbors over, and partake in it. I at one point, you know, enough is enough with all of these things you've got going on, and we want, stuff, maybe drilled down more on parking offenses. These vexatious complaints that you're getting pulled to must be frustrating. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, not an easy job. I certainly wouldn't want to do it. And, we're a big town. We're a big area that has to be covered with not a lot of staff. So, and like you were saying, Councillor Pachariva, a lot of repeat calls on the same issues over and over and over. But then again, when do you draw the line? This time it might be a big issue and you didn't go. So that's really difficult. You have to respond regardless. So that's my 2 cents and my take on it. But thank you very much, Mr. Barkway, for all your comments there and answers to all these questions. Okay, so I'm not seeing anyone else in the queue, and we have no confidential items. Do we have any committee remarks?
Sorry, Councillor, I'm just going to read the motion for this report.
Oh, yes, of course, sorry. Go
No
ahead.
problem. It was moved by Councillor Miklick since Councillor Miklick pulled it from the consent agenda, and the motion is that committee receive and file report PD 3324 regarding municipal law enforcement Q1 and Q2 report. And with that, I will open the voting. Thank you. And I'll close the vote, and that motion carries. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you, Devan. I missed that. It was not in my script, so thank you for that catch. Okay, so do we have any committee remarks? I am seeing none. There being no further business, I call this meeting adjourned